Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Kate Quinn of Fabricated Quilts, and I'm here to join Sew Steady in a quilt along that is designed by one of our accredited teachers, Helen Sullivan. It's called the Colored Pencils Quilt, and a lot of the different artists that are joining Sew Steady, a lot of the educators, we each took a different color, and I got pink. So here is a little sneak peek as we get going. I hope you'll join me and see how I quilted this. I try to always provide some options and instruction that will help you when you're designing at home. And at the very end, we'll reveal the whole quilt and the front and the back side of the quilting. And you can see I've got this beautiful pink pencil. Pink is one of my favorite colors. I'm even matching today so that I can help amp up all of the pink for my project. I'm going to be using a pink thread as well. It's pink variegated thread from Superior Threads. It's Fantastico, so it's a 40 weight poly, and I've got a 90 top stitch needle in my machine. So I've already gone ahead and just quilted this part. This is the same for Helen Sullivan's quilt along. I'm super excited to be able to participate in this group project where a lot of our different educators are each using a different color, and then we're quilting it the way that we want to. But I believe that all of this part of the pencil is essentially the same. So I've already pre-quilted that, and we're going to focus on the body of the quilt. I'm going to go ahead and use the Fun and Fancy collection. Since this is the collection that I curated, I thought it would be fun to see what new designs that we could add in using the tools in this set. I'm also going to go ahead and use my 12-inch arc or alternate straight edges if you have that. I think those are always very useful. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. It doesn't matter what size your segments are. It wouldn't matter if my design crosses over. I'm going to just count this as all pink and do whatever I want. But to start out with, I'm going to go ahead and mark the center of this space, and I'm putting a design that'll fit right in here, and I'm using the very edge of the fabric that will be sewn in, so a little bit of my design will be actually in the seam, and I'm okay with that. I've just decided that for Quilt As You Go, this is going to be a really simple edge for me to align, so I'm just going to mark the center of this little sash piece. So scoot it over just a little bit. That's about 1/8 or so on each side, give or take. Pretty close to the center. So let's see, I guess I could have used the other side. Let's see if that's easier. 1, 2, 3.5. So let's see, 1.5 and 1/4. So I'm a little bit off right there. It didn't seem quite right. Okay, so that's 1 3/4 and 1 3/4-ish. Close enough, good enough for what we're going to do. So in the Fun and Fancy set, the main template, the largest one, this one is sewing out pretty big. It's the 7.5. This is the Circles on Quilt spinning wheel number 21. So it's not just this distance, it's also the pin. That's really big. It will fit lengthwise once this way, but I can't actually put it in the middle here and actually do a spinning design. This is a 90-degree pivot if you use the pin. So I decided that I'm going to use it a little differently, more like a spin effects. And the first thing I want to do is on the bottom, there is a little border line right here. And that's what I'm going to be lining up on the edge of the quilt right here. And I'll center on that marked center line that I made. Okay, so in this way, the needle's going to start a little bit below the seam, right? Because this would be sewn in 1/4 inch. So I'm okay with that. I'm just going to push it up just a little bit because the edge of our design is going to come from this corner. So I won't push it all the way up. I do want to make sure that it's sewn in just a little bit, but it's pushed up almost 1/4 inch. If you wanted to measure that, you could. I think it's going to be fine. When I start, I'll start on one side, and I'm just going to go up and down. And from this part right here, this is where I'm going to pivot it as a spin effects to do some additional designing. Okay, so get it lined up on that center line. Make it nice and even here on the bottom. And here we go. As always, I want to go ahead and pull up my bobbin thread so that I have it up on the top. If it matters to you, you can tuck it under and then just bring your ruler right into position. Check that you're aligned. I want to be on this center mark here and nice and straight this way. So I'll go ahead and center my needle now, put it down, and I'm ready to sew this first line. Oh, we're going a little slow, so I'm going to bump up the speed here. And push down on the other side. Now, from this point, I've just got the outline shape, but I want to turn this so that you can see a little better so that the camera helps you focus on what we're doing. I'm going to pivot from this anchor point. The foot is hooked right in that little juncture, and I'm going to pivot so that the edge right here is a 1/4 inch beyond the tip. Let's see. Right there, I'm measuring on the top. I can see this stitch line, and I have the edge of this plastic is extending beyond that. And I'm right near the tip. It's kind of a guesstimate. If you want to be really, really picky about where you're measuring, you can always put some kind of mark or ruler sticker or something like that. If you felt like you needed that, you can just do something like that to be really precise. We're going to be using both sides, so I think the estimate is fine. I'm going to go ahead and sew up until I touch the stitch line here. So I'm creeping up slowly, and I'm going to go backwards, which brings me right back down where I left off. Right at the bottom, there's only one touch point. And then same thing here. I'm going to advance this until it's a 1/4 inch beyond right where it touches the line. So touch the line again and advance back to the bottom. I'm tucked all the way into the ruler right here at this juncture. Now, I love how this looks. I'll just tip it this way. You can see I got a little swag coming in. We'll get in a little bit closer so you could see a little better view of it right there. But if I wanted to repeat this, how do I get to the other side? I can actually sew out here in the batting if I wanted to. If I don't want to, let's say this was an actual project and the next block was there and I didn't have any free travel space like I do right now, I can actually use another ruler and just come over to this position with the spacing gauge. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. I don't have my nice little pull tab on this one. Well, I'll retape him later. I'm just going to go ahead and pull him up. That's where my ruler sticker is too, so no worries. It's pretty easy. I'll just take this little guy off. I am going to have to put him right back on. So let me show you a couple ways that we can do it. We have all kinds of different arcs that might fit that are part of this Fun and Fancy set. This is the 3x1 oval, that's this piece, and then the inner piece is actually a different size. It's a 1/2 inch different in both directions. So I can just put this in here, and you only want to go until you're the 1/4 inch apart. This is where your spacing gauge is really handy. Okay, and I can just center that, and we'll sew right over to the other side. So you can see it's handy to have a couple of different arcs that you can use for many different purposes. This one is long, this one's a little skinnier, I can push it up taller, and then of course these ones you get 2 additional ones just on this alone. And there's quite a few more that are in this set that are all base 3. All right, so let's go ahead and put this back on and we'll sew the other side. And what my plan is overall is I want to show you just a few different ways that you could use this tool, the tools that are in the Fun and Fancy set, and just create your own unique fills for this space. We don't always get to decide what quilt piece, that we're quilting. We know that we need a certain amount of quilting on anything, but we can just use the rulers that we have and we can create unique fills that fit that space. So I want to go ahead and line this back up the way it was before, and I'll put it on this opposite side. And then just like I did before, I'm going to use this as the Spinifex pivot. This would be the standard orientation right here, straight. And then as I pivot that, I want to go so that it's a 1/4 inch past the tip, right there, just like I measured on the opposite side. And I'll sew until I touch the border. So slow down when you get close, that way you can monitor that you're not going too far. Okay, let the needle stop and pivot one more time, and again, use your spacing gauge and you're measuring the 1/4 inch. What I'm measuring is where this line is touching right here. As this plastic edge crosses over, that's where I'm measuring right there. So I have a really strong visual and I'm not guessing. So touch and back down to the bottom. Okay, and I'll go ahead and just tack this off with a few tacking stitches. It'll be sewn in, so I'm not really worried about that, but I do like to go ahead and make sure all those are secure. So here I'm pulling away to stretch my bobbin thread, and then I'm going to needle down and up to pick up that thread and cut. Okay, there's my bobbin thread right there. Pull all of that up, and I'm just going to reach and grab my scissors and snip this off. I can also snip off all my starting tails right there because we're all done. So isn't that cute? And my thought is I'm going to do just a couple of these randomly along the sides, and I'm going to use some of my S curves to fill in between. And that gives me the opportunity to use several of the different rulers that are in the Fun and Fancy set. And then I'm going to accent that with the 1-inch circles that are also in the set. Okay, so here we've used 2, and I'll go ahead and fill in a few more of these, a couple on each side, and kind of stagger them around along the whole set. Once I've added a few more of those, then I'm going to go ahead and show you how we connect that with the wavy lines. So I've added several of these circles on quilts, Spinifex number 21, and I've put them on opposite sides like this. So here, here, and then I've got 2 more. I've got a total of 4. I tried to center them just so that they would have a good visual, but it's not required to do that. I mean, the thread is pink, but that's just a decision that I made. They're not spaced in any particular order. I just picked a little space that I thought was wide enough so that the design could show. So now I want to go ahead and put some curvy arcs. I'm going to use the shallower side of this back-to-back 3-2 from the Fun and Fancy set. So you can see on this side, the arc is taller and it dips lower, and the one on this side is a little shallower. So this one is 2 inches from the top and bottom, the distance, and then this one is 1.5 on this side. Now, when I put this on and I line it up, I'm going to show you a couple things. It just so happens that this mark right here is halfway from here to here, and the other half from here to here. I did not plan that. That's just how it turned out. It wouldn't have mattered. I would have made a line somewhere else if it wasn't in the middle. But when I sew the arc with this shallow side up, I don't want to cut off this bottom, right? I don't want to just lay it on there on this bottom line here and have this part cut off. I want this dip to be well into the stitched area. So I'm actually going to line it up like this, which is the first line for this bottom curve that shows up. And I'm going to line that up on the bottom. And that way, when I sew, I can make sure that my curve is definitely visible. Now, we said that this pink line is the center. So if I line that up, just like we just mentioned, with this reference line right here, this line that is the start of the foot hook on this seam right here, and I put my foot in, you can see that right here it's going to sew a 1/4 inch away. And this is a 6-inch template. So I can show you that right there, this is where I would end up at a 1/4 inch, right? If I sewed this, this is where I would end up. Now, I'm just going to quickly scoot this over like this, and line up this side. Okay, and just like we said, we're going to line up the bottom right here on the reference line. And just so you can see what I'm lining up here, I'll move these arrows. There's a line on the template, and I'm aligning that right along the edge here of the fabric. And that way I can have a consistent measurement so that I know where I'm lining up, so I don't have to guess. This line all the way across is lined up on the bottom of this fabric. And right here, this is where my 1/4 inch would be. So right here is where I'm going to start stitching so that I can come right into this spot. The reason I'm bothering to measure that is I can just start in the center and I can sew that way. But if I go ahead and I just telegraph like we just did, I can start over here and I can sew the entire way and we'll end in the middle. You know, the same distance from this side to that side, it'll be balanced where the curves end up. Can they be disbalanced? Of course. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I want to make them even. So that's important to me. And this is also showing you how you can just use a little reference line if you want to just start your line at one side. So let's go ahead and just sew this line. And what I'm going to do is my plan is to sew maybe 2 or 3 lines stacked up on top of each other with a slight offset, just for fun, just so we can have the curves kind of smush into each other a little bit and create sort of a ribbon effect. All right, so here's where we're going to start. I like to kind of sew this way, so I'll orient it this way, get myself lined up. And there's my reference line right there. And I'm going to start. Actually, no, I'm going to scoot this down just a little bit. I see an opportunity, and so I'm going to take it. I'm going to line this up right where this bottom leaves off. And I think that'll make the design connect in a little nicely. I didn't see that before, but I think that could be kind of fun. And since it's even, that means technically it should connect just as the same on the other side. So I'll get this lined up. And here we go. So this line right here is lined right up on the reference line, and we're just going to sew across. And this way you can see this will definitely show the entire curve. Nothing will be lost. So I'm going to activate some grips and have a wide hand stance here. A few tacking stitches as we start, and here we go. Watch your finger there. Okay, I'm going to shift over just to make sure I'm not going to bite my finger there. As I get a little far away, my hand is stretched out. I'll just scoot up so I have better control. Okay, I'm right at the hook, right on that 6-inch line. And remember what we said, this was the middle. So as I scoot this down, I'll be able to line that up right on the line. And there's the first reference line right there, just like we mentioned. So this is lined up and this is aligned as well. I'm just kind of checking right here that my fingers are out of the way so I don't get bit. And I'm going to adjust my hand position. This is a long line of stitching, so I want to go ahead and make sure that I have good control as we go. All right, and then let's just keep on going. We'll use that same visual alignment here, just like we did before. So as I hold on the back, I'm going to scoot my hands down just a little bit to stay out of the way. So I'm not quite making it to my alignment mark. So here I'm just going to scoot this down just a little bit. I made 6-inch reference marks on each side to keep me lined up. So I'm making that slight adjustment there. And then here, line it right up on this same reference line with that arrow there on the bottom. And as I sew, actually, I end up right at the base of this other design. Ooh, how perfect is that, right? That's so cool. I love it when things like that work out. That's not planned, but I love how it looks. So let me just show you real quick. I've got that same 6-inch reference line. This is going to help me stack these curves the way that I want by making these 6-inch from the center reference lines. So now I can stack whatever I want on top of this. In order to move up to the next line, I have this piece of the design right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and move up. And I'm going to say I want to move up so that I have a visual 1/2 inch between this and this line. What's a quick and easy way to make sure that I have the correct space that I want? I'm just going to use my spacing gauge. So it looks like I need about 1 more stitch or 2 to get my 1/4 inch. The 1/4 inch right here from the bottom of this design back here to where the foot is, that's a 1/2 inch that I just measured. The foot is adding another 1/4 inch. So now if I stack these up, and remember that I want to use this shallower side, I'm going to line it up right here on that 6-inch measure. Okay, so right there, this line is aligned on the mark line, and I'm now 3/4 inch above. So as I sew this, I should get a nice little spacing between my 2 curves. Okay, and I'm right on the reference line, and that's going to bring me right then to this 6-inch center. Just move down to the hook, and I'll just line it up right on the line. And now I'm ready to sew. Okay, and I'm going to just keep on going, fill those in a little bit. Here's my line right here. I'm right on the reference line. Right down here, that's the 6 inches from this center line that I marked. That's helping me keep everything nice and even. So, oh, sorry, bumped ya. Here we go. Okay, right into the hook. And then I'm going to just move these threads. Actually, I'll snip them, and we'll go ahead and sew right into the design. And then we'll look at it and we'll see how many lines that we have. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so right along the ruler here, I'm going to go ahead and just do some tacking stitches. The reason I'm going to stop, I'll show you in just a second. If I try to add another line, I think it's going to be too tall for this tip. So I don't want to add any more. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I've already tied off. And now we can go ahead and work on the other side. So what my plan is I'm going to go ahead and sew some of the arcs on the opposite side as well, using the same guidance that we just used. But look at how cute that looks. Here, I'll just flip this up. I just want to show you the texture that it generates. I love it so much. And then I've got some little spaces here. And what I plan to do is I can either use this and just put in some cute tips like this on the center of the arc, or tips like this, and fill that in. It doesn't have to be the whole shape. And then on the inside here, I want to see if I can make these opposed, so that if this is the tip of the arc, the other one goes the other way. And that way I'll have an opening right here, and I can put something right here in the fills between each of these, kind of like how this one is lined up right there. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this on the other side. I'm lining up this so that my arcs will be in the same position, right? I'm going to stretch this reference line over, and if I need to stop and it hits this, that's fine. Then I'll just make a mark and I'll continue it on the other side. That way it'll be kind of like this, and I'll fill this on the other side all the way till the end as well. So I'm just going to do the same exact thing here that I've already done and match it on the other side, and then we'll meet back to show you those additional fills that we just talked about. Okay, so I've completed these double S curves from the back to back on both sides, and you can see they kind of touch right here, so I didn't add any more. I could add more down on the bottom if I wanted to echo this, but remember, we're going to put something else in this space, from another design. So now we have this center space, and I'll just kind of show you. It changes a little bit. See how this one's not centered? So we have a little bit more space to one side, okay? And then That's actually the same with this one. We have a little bit more space on this side. And then this one is basically empty. And then this one, it's a little bit more centered, so we have a little bit of space on this side and on this side. So for me, I would put a little bit of something on each side just because this is centered. And then this one's empty. And then this one is mostly empty. This is kind of right here in the middle. So this has more of an openness right here. So one of the next templates that I want to use is the 1-inch circle. And I want to use it to fill in some of this space and just create a little bit more visual interest. So let's go back to the beginning. And on this one, we kind of want to be on this side. So on this side, we need to be on the top. So let's go ahead and put this one on the bottom. This one's empty, but we'll use this one as the guide. I'm going to take the same shape. Remember that this is the shallow side, and I'm going to lay it right on this part, and I want the same relationship, right? So it's about like that, but the same 1/2 inch. And then when I mark my line, I'm going to use the stitching line disc as if the foot were present, and that'll give me that same relationship. And I'll also mark the center of the curve, which is right here, because I want my design to be a little bit centered on this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there's the center, and there's our marked reference line. That's how I know that I'm in the correct position. Okay, so I'm just going to take my little stitching line disc, and I'm just going to mark this curve right here. Okay, now I want to put about 3 of these circles, if I can, along the curve. So this one would be centered like this on the center line here and here, and then on the midline here and here. Okay, and I'll just put this in so you can kind of see the concept of what I'm doing. Okay, now I want to put another one over here, but I want it on the curvature. So I want it to follow that curve. So if this is the end right here, this is where I would start. Now I want to show you something real quick. Let's turn the light on. Notice here that this is going to cut into the other circle. Whenever you're sewing a circle as a purl on a curve, it depends on which direction it's curving, but one side cuts in and one side doesn't. So the open side is going to be this side. So when I would sew this one, I would do my double stitching and I would come back to that side. I don't want to sew through this potentially. So we're going to sew this one first, and we're going to start right there. And that will help me as I go across to put these 3 right in here. And it's okay that we have some openness because we have interrupting designs on every one of these little interiors. So I think with this one going on that side, and then here I'll just put 2, and I can put them on either side. It wouldn't matter, but I can kind of alternate those circles. And if you wanted to fill in more, you could even put another one that way, but I think that's too much for me. I think I'm just going to try to follow this curvature and do 1, 2, 3 for fill, and then here I'll do 1, 2 on this side, and then on this side 1, 2, and we'll just fill as best we can. My goal will be to try to alternate, but I'm not going to stick to that as a hard and fast rule. I'm just going to let the guide be whatever the design requires. So here's my curve mark that I made, and there's where I estimate that the design will start. Pull up that bobbin thread and then put this inside. I do like to have my threads underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and get them out of my way, all under the ruler, and then use the marked position for my start. Now, don't worry if this is like, a little off here or there. A tiny little bit won't matter. This is very free form for this design. What's important right now is as we line this up, one side of this is on the marked curve, and that's where the needle is, and then the other side is going to be on the curved line. So this line on this side is also on the opposite side of the curve. What's happening in the middle, we're not worried about that. We're not trying to control that. We just want to put this in first. So with circles, you have to go 1.5 times around, and I'm just going to pull these threads a little tight so that they don't get in our way. And now I'll come to the center line of the curve, move to the next one, and we want both of these lines, this side and this side, on the marked curve. So if I go to this side, I should not cut into the existing design. If I go backwards, I will. So here, I'm going to go forwards, not cut into it. Sew until you touch the line right there. It's not all the way, right there. And then back to the marked curve right there. Because that's your 1.5. We sewed around and back to the marked curve. And then this one will be the last one. And again, we want to be on the outside, so we're going to go down first and then around. Go around until you touch and back to your center line. That gives you a little space just to tack off, and then they'll all look the same. Okay, same thing. Pull, lengthen my bobbin thread, line my needle back up right where I left off, needle down, needle up, and when you pull away, there's my bobbin thread right there. So pull that up tight, and now I can use my scissors and cut all of my threads. Okay, now I know there's a lot of marked lines on there, makes it a little bit difficult to see. I'll tip it up a little bit so you can kind of get the idea. Okay, so mine here is following the curve on this side. If you felt like this was too open, you can put something else in there. You can add a couple more of these, right? We could easily do something like this, 1, 2, and fill up the space and make this be like a little bubble holder in there. And then what I'm going to do on this side is maybe I'll do, 1 or 2 this way because this is kind of filled up. So maybe my curvature will actually be right in this area, and I'll do 1, 2, 3, and that'll make this look intentional. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start filling up bubbles. I'll show you this one. We'll mark this curve with this same curvature, but I'm going to sort of angle it right in the middle here. And it'll still have a nice similar echo of this shape, but I think we can fit those 3 right in there, and that'll help preserve this because that looks really cute, don't you think? All right, and then we'll fill this space up nicely. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do that together. And just so you can see how you can deal with this, because this is easy, maybe this one's less easy. But I'm just going to think of this as a center line. If you need to mark that, you can even go ahead and do that. I'll just mark right in between these curves, trying to keep my edge a little bit straight, like this. Okay, and again, I'm going to use my stitching line disc when I mark this curve because I want to make sure that I have the same visual. Because this is a little bit smaller, I'm going to bring this down a little further, but we may only be able to get maybe 2 along this curve because 1 on this side, 1 on that side, I think. All right, so let's use our stitching line disc, and then we'll just put 2 of them in. I'll kind of try and space it a little better. What I'm looking at right here is this is a 1/4 inch and our circle is 1 inch, right? So as it sews, it needs maybe a little bit more room. So it needs half on each side. So I'll just go like this. And this one will be easy because we'll start there and we'll do 1 and then we'll do 1 on that side. So that'll be very easy for us to line those up. So it'll be like this, right there. And I'm just double checking right here. Yes, this will fit, So I'm not worried about that. It'll be close, but it'll be the same distance as the other one, so it won't look weird. All right, we'll start with our needle right there. And I'm just going to check really quick. If we put this on this side, make sure it fits there as well. Yeah, that looks good to me. All right, so we'll start right in the center there. Okay, and put this inside. Set your needle right in the center. Okay, and now line up two sides on the arc. So I'll try to show you. This is the center, so put that on the curved line, and this is the center, and put that on the curved line. And so I'm going to make this one follow that. So both on the center here is where it crosses over this midline. So you'll want to be sewing to the outside, and we'll do the first one, and then the other one will just have to not quite touch as much as the first one. The first one has to be completed, so we'll just do one right to the center, and then let's get these excess threads to the other side, and then we'll line this up. So you see, if I come down on this side, it's going to cut into the circle, so I'm going to go to this outside of the curve instead of the inside, and just let it touch, and then come back around. And we'll just end this one right in the center. So I'm going to fill up these interior sections with as many of these little bubbles as I can. I'm going to try and make it so that at least a couple of bubbles are in each one of these. That way the design looks intentional and it has a marked presence. So let me just pull this up a little bit. So this one's got him a little to the side, and they're just in the middle. This one's following a little bit of this curvature. And then on this one, I'm going to make the curve on this side, and we'll put two along this side because this one is on the bottom. There's more space on the top. So just like I did before, I'm just going to lay the curve right on there, and I'll mark it with the stitching line disc. That's how I'll know that the curve will fit nicely. And I have this as the reference line for centering. Okay, so here's the shallow side, so let's use that. These threads are sticking to me. Okay, there's the reference line right there, so line that up. And then I want to go to like that. That's a 1/2 inch, and I'm aligned on the existing curve. And then to keep the spacing the same, I'm just going to use my stitching line disc, which is mimicking the foot. And here is the center mark of the curve. Okay. So then I'm going to just play with this curvature and see how many I can get in there. I just don't want to be too close. So, we'll start somewhere over here. 1, 2, 3, as many as I can get in there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up all of the little circles on each one of these insets for the back-to-back, these little wavy orange peel centers. And then we'll meet back and I'll show you how we're going to add some little details in these little outside borders. So I went ahead and I added all the circles to each of the insets. And what I'm going to do is I want you to be able to see kind of how they're spaced. They are a little irregular, and I have an idea for something that I'm going to do to make that look a little more intentional, even though they are not perfectly balanced. But this is what they look like. I think they look still very cute, right? This one is on this side. This one is on this side, so I've got a little space here, a little space here. This one is a little bit more balanced, kind of looks like eyes. And then this one goes on the opposite side. And this one, you know, I think he's filled enough. This one looks like he could use another little something here. So I have an idea for this. But what we want to look at is this space right now that's right in the middle here. There's room right here and right here. And what I'd like to do is draw a line through the center of these arcs using the marked references that we already put on the other side. I'm going to mark a center line, and I'm going to put this on that center line and just add a little piece down to the stitch line. So it'll be hidden in the stitch line, and that can add just a little bit, and I can actually see which side I like best, like if you wanted to play with whether one side was better or not. As long as the opening here is touching that, the design is going to sew a 1/4 inch away. If you wanted more space, you could use the spacing gauge, but I think for simplicity, I'm just going to use the cut edge aligned on that center line of the curve, so right in the middle, and that'll be a 1/4 inch apart. And this side is skinnier and this side is wider. So one of the things that you could do before you even stitch it out is you could just play with that and see which one you like better. This is where those stitching line discs really come in handy. So I'll mark the center line here of this one. It's pretty open. Let's find the center of this design. We need the skinny side. This is the skinny side, so you'll see it'll fit on the curve nicely. So the center is right there. And the center should technically be the center of both sides, so I'll just try to line it up as evenly as possible on the line right there. And just mark that. Now, try both ways. Line this up so that it's touching. And here on the back it's nice because it doesn't get too busy on the front, so you can't have an issue seeing what you might want to see. Okay, so do I like that shape? Or if I come over here, do I like this shape better? So I have to say I like this one better. I think it's a little bit more curvy and sympathetic. So for mine, I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you some ideas for how we can fill this in a little bit more instead of leaving this open. We can, but we can also use this tool to open this up a little bit. There's nothing that says we can't do something like on the 45 like this and mark that with this crosshair square so that you have a 45 right here, and then you just make the outer edges and then you do this piece like that, so you'll get a little echo. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that with the crosshair square on the front, and we'll get ready to sew those. We'll just do one of these on the camera, and then you would go ahead and fill in the rest of them how you want them. So I went ahead and I marked the center line of the curves right here using the back-to-back 2.5. I laid it on there, and here's the initial reference line from before, and found the center for both sides, and I just marked a line straight through that. Now, as I was looking at it, I feel like 45 has the potential to cut into the curvature, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I pulled out my mini crosshair square, and I'm going to use this initially to mark that 1/4 inch, lay it on there so that the cutout opening is touching, and then right on that center line, that's the mark for where your needle will go. And I'll do the same on this other side. Lay it on the center line all the way, and then right where this line crosses, that's your 1/4 inch, that's your needle position. So I'll just tip it up a little bit so you can see better. So right there, the needle's going to be a 1/4 inch away and a 1/4 inch away right there. Using this dot now, I'm going to take the crosshair square and lay it centered right on there with the center line aligned. Okay. So let me just show you real quick. If we align this first one like that, I'll make this longer so you can see. That way we have somewhere to align. Just like that. Now when I sew this part, then I'm going to the center. It's not going to be crowding the curvature out here because this is a little bit narrow. So we're going to just sew the outside. That'll bring us into the center. Then align on the center. Sew the whole thing like that. Even if it crosses over, I think it'll look awesome. And then tip it to the last line and just go out to the border. That's smart pathway design. We're going to use the initial position of the ruler here to position our foot. Sew in, all the way, and out. And that's all in one pass, and it'll fill in this space, and it's going to look awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get some of these extra tools off of here. I'm going to line up the ruler on the center marked lines. Okay, and this is going to cross right through the needle position. All right, let's get this aligned first. Right there on the center line. Then I can drop my needle and I'll be ready to sew. I'm lined up right here on the dot, so I'm going to sew in. Okay, then align on the center line. You've got a line back here that you can use to get everybody aligned. And here we'll sew out. And I can just cut across and sew back in, right to the center position. And then align this on the last line, and you're just going to come out around this side. Since we're in the boundary and this is all going to be cut off, I don't even have to do any extra work. That'll be in the seam allowance, so I can just go ahead and just cut those threads. Okay, as always, there's the bobbin thread. Tighten that up and then just cut it. And then we'll just make sure we don't have any other loose threads hanging around. Cut those starting tails. I never want any threads hanging around because then those can wrap around my foot and cause problems. So let me just show you what it looks like. Looks a little messy, huh? It actually looks great. Right here with this fabric, it's a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to flip it over so you can see it on the other side. So remember, all these parts right here are out of the stitch line. So really, it's only that. And it looks fine. And I think it fills in this space nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll do it one more time on the other side real quick. A little less talking, a little bit faster matching it up, and get it all stitched up for you. Oh, I got to flip it over. I was trying to do that, but I'm still on the same side. Here we go. Put it on this side. So I've got my center line right there. I've got my center dot. This is where you're going to pull out that mini crosshair and mark those 60-degree. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's see, where's the other one? Here we go. Make sure you're using the correct one. So there's my center, aligned right on the marked lines. And I want the skinnier direction. Right? I want the skinnier legs, not the wider legs. So I'll mark it this way. Okay, and then we'll be ready to sew. when I put it on, go ahead and line up the center position along this line first, and you're going to start with the needle outside like this, just out here. I still like to pick up those threads. I always want to know what's happening and don't want them to get sewn in. So needle down, we're lined up, and let's just sew into the center. Try to look in, make sure you're in the center dot. Now align right to the center mark right here. There's a line on the back that I can also use as visual alignment. Okay, so a little bit outside the border. Right back to your center dot, and then line up on this center line and just sew to the outside. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and finish those up for all of the curvatures so that we'll have those all completely finished. And then I have just the one more little fill that I want to show you for those little spaces that we said I feel like they're a little too empty. So I'm just going to grab a cute little fun template and put something in there, and then we'll be done. I think that's enough quilting for this cute little piece. It'll be enough to definitely make sure all the batting is held in place and that things are kind of filled up nicely, that the balance of the quilting will have a nice feel right there. Okay? Alrighty, good. So let's meet back when I'm all done with this and we'll share that last little bit. All right, I've gone ahead and I filled in all of these little details into these curves. I've done it on both sides. And there's just a few little areas that I feel like maybe need a little bit more quilting, but they need something small. And I absolutely am a huge fan of hearts, and I think they go great with the curvy swervy pink of this pencil. So I'm going to show you just some ideas for how we can implement that and just create a little eye candy to fill in some small spaces. So right here in this, I'm pretty sure that I can fit in 2 hearts. And I'm going to make the heart point here, so they'll kind of look like they're standing on top. So the needle position will be here. And I want to just kind of put this on there and line it up. As long as this is less than 1/4 right here on this side, this will be able to stitch in. So that's going to be the focus of what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to line it up on there. There's a little line right at the top and right there at the bottom that it'll line up with. Let's see if I can get it, this one. And if it's a little tight here, you know, I can just make a quick adjustment just to push it up or not. I'm going to be looking right here with the spacing gauge to make sure that the part of this that's exposed will not cut into the existing circle. So I might need to adjust it just slightly to get that, and the spacing gauge will be my partner in crime for that. So I'm going to grab that. I think I can fit 2 in there. So in this little space, that's going to fill in this top area just a little bit more and make it look fuller and not so lonely. All right, so I'm right at the tip of the circle there in the center. I love that the hearts are easy to use because they're a slide on. So let me get my needle right where I want it. Okay, I've got my tails bobbin and the top thread there. Just slide that on. Now, in order to see how the heart is going to stitch, I'm going to show you the alignment real quick. So I'm just going to turn this a little bit so you can see that there's some alignment that we need to do. Okay, so right there is the seat, right there at the bottom of the heart. As it pulls down, there's a change of direction. And that's the alignment. And then right here, this is going to be where it lines up. So the check that I have to do is right there. So it's pretty close to 1/4. So I'm going to give it a try. If for any reason it didn't fit or something like that, you know what? I could always rip it out if I needed to. But I think it'll actually fit nicely. Oh, perfect. It just fit right in there. And with the hearts, they're unique. You use them on one side and then you flip them over. That's why I have the grips on both sides. So I'll just slide that in, and this is the top part, so I've got the foot hook right around it. And then I'm just going to check the alignment at the back and make sure it's on that same straight line, so it'll stitch right back to the center. So what I want is these two hearts to be distinct and not really crossing over to each other. Oh my gosh, I love it already. I'll show you a little more close-up when we get there. Now this next one, I want to fit it in on this line. It's going to go in this space right here. So this might be a little tight. So if it doesn't fit perfectly, I'm just going to sort of append it, right? Because I'm going to try and sew it from the outside in. Okay, so right there, that should let me get this whole side of the heart. Okay, and when I flip it over, there's not a lot of room here on the other side. So what I'll do is I'm just going to get whatever I can. Line it up on the hook, and I'm lined up on the straight line behind. And most of this top part is going to connect, but I won't be able to pull all the way down to the heart. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this part, and then I'll just kind of scoot around it and just get back to the center right there. So it'll look like this little heart is behind, but I do think that it fills that space in and it looks more intentional. So let me lock it in, and then I'll show you what that looks like. My plan is anywhere that I feel like I need just a little bit more quilting, just a tiny bit more to fill a space. There's a couple of areas that just could benefit from maybe just one or two more little bits of design. And so I'm going to use the heart to fill that in. These hearts are designed to fill basically whatever size that they are, almost like a square. So this is the 1-inch heart, and it would actually fit inside of a 1-inch square. So let's pull this up so you can see it a little better. See, they're so cute. I love it. And then I'll show you right here. I did this on a different side right there, and I put this one kind of seated in the middle there. Okay. And then my plan would be right here, right up next to the head of the pencil, I'm going to put them on this diagonal like this. So this is a 1-inch square. The diagonal's a little bigger, but I'll use that as the base. And I'm going to put just a little heart here by itself and another one here. And then I've got maybe 2 or 3 more. So this can be used just to fill in and keep anything from looking a little too lonely. And it just adds a little bit of whimsy to this design and fills in those spaces. So I'm going to finish those up, and then I will show you the whole bit of the quilt. I'll put it on my design wall so you can really see it. And then I encourage you to go ahead and use your tools, your favorites, and go ahead and sew out your own designs on your cute pencils. This quilt is so much fun. It's definitely great for upcycling. I think I could probably make 20 of them. They're just so fun. And it wasn't really hard. You could certainly do it quilt as you go, or you can just quilt it as if it were one single unit and just stitch all of your pencils together. So right on the center line there, and then line this up on the other side. Put it right in the foot hook, and then just make sure this line is aligned on that center line, and that's what's going to let you get right back to your same start point. Okay, and then I'm just going to check real quick and make sure I am right down at the bottom there. Must not have been as well aligned as I wanted to be. So usually it doesn't take that many to close it. Oh, he's so cute. I love it. All right, let me pull up this bobbin. We'll do the last one, and then we'll be finished. So again, hearts can be really fun. I love using them. They have so much versatility. And because they're based on straight lines and a circle or just a really gentle curve on the side, they're really versatile. So let me just show you how cute that is. So these are all the markings are going to go away, right? You won't see that. It kind of looks a little, I think, offset right there. But I'm going to go ahead and do one more here. And then basically we've got all of our empty spaces filled and the quilt looks amazing. So I'll just spray off any markings, get those markings off, and the quilt's ready to be done and joined to its partners. I haven't actually seen the other people's pencils or designs. I think I've seen just one or two of them. And so it'll be fun to see how they all go together. There's the little tip of my square. That's my alignment mark. I'm going to seat this right on the bottom alignment right there and the center mark right there. And I'll just sew that up. I should align right on that center mark. That's why I drew the line, so that I would have that visual. So then tuck that in, tuck the foot right up on it, and this bottom line right here, I want to align that on that center line again. That helps make the two sides of that heart perfectly even. So then let's do some little tacking stitches here. Okay, and we're done. Right there. So I hope that you've enjoyed this and that you like the finished project. I hope that you found some unique ways to use both the Fun and Fancy set and just some of the other sets. I like that there's a lot of movement, and I also like the interruptions. I like that things, kind of don't have to have everything be matchy-matchy and so perfect. But I love the cute hearts. They're a really cute little addition and definitely help fill in that space. So I'll put it up on the design wall and show you the whole thing and give you a good look at it. Thanks for watching. All right, hi everybody. I put the quilt up. I finished quilting it, and I wanted you to be able to take a good look at all of the designs and how they work together. It does have a nice flow. It feels pretty curvy. And of course, the other designs will all be different as well. So the fact that it's not super symmetrical is kind of a little nod to the modern side. This is definitely a sharp, clean color take on the colored pencils. So I think it does have that little bit of that modern flair where all of your color saturation is really sharp. It's Lucky approved. He loves my pink. And here is that full quilt. I'll just give you a quick look and I'll pan in a little bit so you can see the designs more clearly.